Welcome to another edition of Cattle Call. I'm Susan Littlefield on the Rural Radio Network. Of course, Cattle Call is brought to you by Wolf Auto, small town strong. I'm on location, not in the Omaha airport like we planned to do this program today as I come back from Commodity Classic because I'm still in Denver. Could not make it to Omaha today. And that's kind of where I wanted to start out real quick is just our thoughts go out to all our cattlemen out there. I know so many of you are calving right now, and this blizzard that came through a big chunk of Nebraska on the eastern half, headed into Iowa, parts of Kansas. We know that you guys are out there working hard to keep those cattle and those calves, those brand new babies, as safe as possible. Brad Kooima is joining us today. He's Kooima Kooima Varilek out of Sioux Center, Iowa. Talk about the markets of this week, because I think if anything has added some stress and let's not chase the headlines. It's been what we saw this week. We know that the tariff talks coming in on a Tuesday. Some say, and we talked about this during Commodity Classic, what a coincidence the tariff started on the same day as the State of the Union address. But you look at all of this and all that information that's being thrown at this cattle market, it's easy to focus on that and not focus on the actual cattle news and the trade that's happening.
Susan, you couldn't be more correct. Probably are saying it more politely than I'm trying to figure out how to say it. By the way, thanks for sure for having me on. Enjoy this a lot. I think you said it well. And these kind of markets I dislike strongly. I people would know by now that I'm a fundamentalist by heart. You know, obviously I understand technicals because if you don't, you get run over. But this is a wild card that is, the fancy word is, it's fluid, Brad. It's fluid. Yeah, I get what that means. And I get that you have to adapt or get, you know, if you're not, even if you're going in the right direction, if you're not moving, you get run over, right? You know, so I get all that. But how to anticipate making marketing decisions when you just changed cattle futures $8 a hundred from yesterday morning to today's close, $8 a hundred. That's a lot. Do the math. I think everybody that watches your program knows what cattle are worth, but that's a lot. Okay. I think let's deal with the tariff issue first, because that's where you led, because that trumps everything. Sorry, I couldn't resist. The fear there, of course, is that, you know, I said it kind of jokingly when we were doing our prep here, but you know, what if this tariff thing lasts a while? What if that creates a trade war? What if the trade war creates a recession? What if nobody will ever eat a ribeye again? And I'm being somewhat tongue in cheek, but I mean, that's how the market felt at 8:45 yesterday morning. You know, when I think the market was reacting in the most poor way. And you saw a tremendous drop in the open interest as the longs hit the road. That's the other problem. See, fund managers, long speculators, they don't like uncertainty. They don't like not knowing what the news is going to be and whether or not there's going to be a shift in the wind from a political thing. And so that was a problem. But by golly, yesterday, amazingly enough, April cattle led the charge, came back roaring higher. Bottom like cattle, that's the way they bottom. That's also the way they top. What the day the news is the worst is when you make the bottom. That's kind of an old commodity broker saying, but I could really relate to it yesterday. I wondered, you know, okay, what about today now? You know, we all watched, at least I did, watch the speech and thought, okay, well, he's warning us a little bit that there could be a little bit of, you know, could be kind of prickly for a little while, right? And didn't really say anything terribly substantive. I didn't think specifically about cattle or the import or exporting of it. So I wondered whether we'd get follow through, especially with that big drop in the open interest. But boy, did we, however, did we ever, you know, I even got some months back here, the back end of the feeder cattle that made new contract highs. So what do you do with this? You know, part of me wants to say, well, Susan, being that I don't know what the next news on tariffs are going to be, maybe we should talk about what I think I maybe do know. Although I should say this. I think the rally partly today was on hope, expectation that maybe we're going to get a quick resolution, maybe as soon as today and tomorrow. He's meeting with Trudeau today. Trump is Mexico tomorrow. Right. That maybe we're going to get a quick resolution and we can, you know, not worry about this tariff, or we'll kick it down the road another month or something, you know. So I think now we got a little pressure on the market that, okay, you better hear the news you expected then, you know, to justify what we did here today. But Otherwise, or we could talk about cattle fundamentals, which is a lot more fun than talking about tariff stuff for me, at least, Susan.
Absolutely. You kind of hinted to that. Looking at the way the trade numbers were on a Tuesday, is there the potential that a bottom may have been put place and we can start to move ourselves up the ladder rung once again?
I think we got two hurdles to get over to confidently say that we've made the low, although I think we have. I think that's the worst, unless we get some really bad news. But you got a big fund roll. You got a big open interest that we got to move on to April. And remember how difficult that was in February? It seemed like it took a long time before it felt like we were had gotten that down enough. So you got that. But then you also we got to get down the road here, whatever it is, a week or two, and get this tariff business behind us, so we know we can expect, and at least get the market to assimilate that, so we don't have to every morning try to interpret what the latest news is on that. So I think so. I mean, you've got a situation here where you've still got tight supply of cattle in the north. I keep going back to that. As goes the north, so goes the market. We're still pulled forward. We don't have a big supply of cattle here in March, and nobody's going to convince me otherwise that we do in the north. You got indications already that the south is at least steady with some 197 trade early in the week. I think that's encouraging. You got signs that the box beef is turning. We even got in the south, Kansas and Texas, particularly, where I'm looking at the weights yesterday morning, the regional weights, down significantly, both in Texas and Kansas, finally. And so
Yeah.
if it was just that, I'd say, well, February is always hard to sell beef. Now we're into March. The weather's going to get warmer, not worse. And I could build a real optimistic case if I could just put the rest of this stuff to bed, but you can't. It is what it is.
I was gonna say that's got to be the hard part, because there's too much of that political action that's weighing into the trade, and it's not just in the livestock side of it. We're seeing it in grains and in just general market action as well. But is there a rally of hope that's out there for this trade as we move into the second half this week and into next week, get post everything that's been happening?
Well, let's optimistically assume that we put the biggest fears of whatever, trade wars, stuff like that. If we can put that to bed, I think I'm in the minority here by a long ways, but I'm of the view that we have not made our highs yet on the cattle market for this run. I don't think we've made our highs on the cash market, which was 212. And I don't think that the futures have made its new high. I think that second quarter, to me, looks really like a nice, you're going to pick up demand. I still think you're going to have this cattle supply pulled forward, because we all have the same anxiety, right? We remember 2015. We don't like the news right now. We're not going to sit here and fight with these cattle. I think that they're going to make a little money. We're going to sell them. And that's good. That's what we did in 14, and that's what we did last year. So, no, I remain optimistic, other than we got to avoid the black swan event. So, like I tell guys, I said, buy puts and stay bullish. That's kind of what if I had to summarize my marketing opinion in one sentence, I guess that's it. That sounds oversimplified, but that's how the market feels to me when you got upside potential anyway.
At the beginning of the program, we talked about this weather, and I know that it didn't hit all cattle growing areas and cattle feeding areas, but it is still a concern. I mean, because you've got processing facilities in these areas, sheets of ice. You can't move any animals to their final destination when the weather's as bad as it is. And then, of course, calves hitting the ground.
Particularly for people calving, I think it is a bad deal. But, here we largely missed it, although the wind blew 50, 60 miles an hour, but we only had an inch or two of snow. So school was, I guess they actually ended up calling it off here, but it threw a pretty good stretch to Nebraska. Things were tough. And then you put that on a set of cattle that haven't hardly had a bad day. They really react poorly, when you get that first blast of weather. When you were talking about that early, I couldn't help but think I was going to smart off and say, yeah, I think we work harder at treating our cattle good than sometimes the airlines work at treating their patient or their passengers very good, right?
Yeah. All right. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you, Brad?
kkbtrading.com. You can find all about us, or our phone number, 712-722-0023.
All right. That has been an edition of this week's Cattle Call. Of course, Cattle Call is brought to you by Wolf Auto, small town strong. And a quick reminder, commodity futures and options do involve a substantial risk of loss, not suitable to all investors. And that's this week's Cattle Call on the Rural Radio Network.